12 years later, when people ask how it started, I tell them the truth. I was folding laundry. That's the detail no one expects. Not a courtroom, not a slammed door, a basket of towels on a Tuesday, phone buzzing twice on the couch cushion. I'm not standing next to a failure, from my father. Then, 40 minutes later, as if she'd waited to make sure the first one landed. You embarrass the family, from my mother. I didn't reply. I want to be precise about that, because in the version people imagine, I write something devastating back. I didn't write anything. I finished folding the towels. If you'd asked me then what failure meant, I could have given you the whole ledger. The marketing degree I'd abandoned at 23. The 2 years I spent as a leasing agent, while my brother closed on his second investment property. The way my name had quietly stopped appearing in conversations about the family's rentals, the ones my father built 40 years of identity around. At Thanksgiving, he'd walk guests through the portfolio like a museum tour. I was never asked to come on the tour. I was asked to help with dishes. I don't say any of this looking for sympathy. It's just the texture of it, the ordinary weather of being the disappointing one. There's no scene where it crescendos. It just accumulates. The way water finds the low point in a floor, without anyone noticing the floor was ever uneven. What I did, instead of replying, was go quiet in a specific direction. I took a job managing distressed properties for a firm that handled the unglamorous end of real estate. The evictions, the receiverships, the buildings nobody wanted to inherit. I studied for a property management license at night, then a paralegal certificate. Then 4 years later, landlord-tenant law, because I found I liked the neutrality of it. A lease doesn't know whose daughter you are. A notice of default doesn't care if you were invited to the wedding photos. I want to be honest that this wasn't strategy. I didn't build a career as a weapon. I built it because I was good at something finally, and the something happened to be exactly the part of the industry my father considered beneath him. He was a builder, a visionary, he said. He didn't do paperwork, he had people for that. I became the person who does paperwork. It turned out paperwork runs the world. Here's the part I still find strange, looking back. Even after all that, even with a title and a license in a corner office with my name on frosted glass, I'd catch myself checking whether my mother had liked a photo I'd posted. Some circuit in me was still waiting for the tour to include my name. That didn't go away just because I'd built something real. Competence and longing aren't the same organ, and one doesn't cure the other. My father, in the meantime, had over-leveraged the crown jewel of his portfolio. A 12-unit building he talked about at every holiday like it was a grandchild. He'd refinanced twice, missed payments he didn't mention, and the loan eventually went into default and was assigned, as these things are, to a servicing firm for workout or recovery. My firm did contract work for that servicer. I didn't seek the file. I want to say that clearly, because the version where I hunted him down is a better story but not a true one. I was handed a stack of case files on a Thursday, and his name was 3 folders down, and I didn't recognize it until I was halfway through the property address. I sat with that for a long time before I did anything. Not out of hesitation about the work. The work was the work, and it would proceed with or without my discomfort. I sat with it because I realized I felt almost nothing. Not triumph, not grief exactly. Something closer to vertigo, like standing on a floor you'd always assumed was level and only now noticing the tilt. The paperwork moved the way paperwork moves. Notices go out on their own schedule, not anyone's convenience. I wasn't the one who served it. I don't do field service, that's a separate function entirely, a uniform process server contracted independently. I only knew the date because I'd signed off on the file the week before. What I didn't know until afterward was that the date would land on a Saturday, my cousin's wedding. 200 people, a marquee tent, my father in a rented tuxedo, giving a toast about family and legacy. I was there. I hadn't chosen to be there for this purpose. I'd RSVP'd months earlier like everyone else. I was near the bar when the server found him, clipboard in hand, and said his name aloud the way they're required to. I watched from maybe 20 feet away. I saw the moment he understood what the envelope was. I saw the color leave his face in a way I can still describe precisely. Even now, not dramatic, not a stagger, just a kind of stillness settling over him. Like a man realizing the floor he's been standing on his whole life was never actually his. He didn't look at me. I don't think he made the connection that day, or maybe he did and never said so. Either way, there was no scene. I didn't walk over. I finished my drink and left before the cake was cut. People want the ending to be a confrontation, a vindication, my parents finally seeing me. That's not what happened. What happened is smaller and stranger. Word travels in families the way water finds the low point. Eventually he learned where the file had passed through, whose firm it was. We've spoken twice since, both times about logistics, both times civil, both times entirely without warmth. He asked my professional opinion once, about a lease dispute with a new tenant. I gave it to him accurately the way I'd give it to any client. That's the part that undid me more than the eviction ever did. Being asked finally for the thing I actually knew. Not being forgiven. Being useful. I never got an apology. I want to be clear, I stopped waiting for one somewhere around the 3rd year of night classes. Though I couldn't tell you the exact date. The way you can't tell you the exact day a callus finally stopped hurting. The file closed eventually. The way files do. The relationship didn't close. It just sits there now. Unfinished, functional, technically operational. Like a building nobody's decided what to do with yet. I've made peace with that being the whole ending. Some things don't resolve. They just stop actively hurting. And you learn to walk past them without flinching. And eventually that's close enough to peace that you stop waiting for the other kind.